Welcome back. This is Elaine, and this is actually Summer Watch series. We are working through the whole seed catalog 2026. Unfortunately, the company is out of catalogs, but you may be able to find a copy on eBay. I think they're almost completely out. So hopefully, uh, you can paint along with me, and the picture is relatively clear. So, I often recommend this seed catalog because the images have always been gorgeous over the years, and it was suggested by a student of mine that, hey, can we just, paint with this? So I am offering some free classes to kind of practice, draw, paint. Not really quite sure. This one was the second week, and it will be up shortly on my YouTube channel. So we're trying to have fun with some summer gardening, flowers, fruits, vegetables, plants. And then I want to talk about Japanese aesthetics. And over the years, I've always talked about them, but like to relate them a little bit clearer to the message of beginning to paint, how to set up to paint. So today's subject is Ma. And Ma basically has to do with the space. So the subject is the cosmos flowers on page 163 of the catalog, and they do appear a little bit deeper on the video. So you can see uh, this is more of the coloring that I'm seeing, but it's okay. And every printer, of course, is going to be slightly different. So I will give some colors out and hopefully that will match you. But what I like about the cosmos flowers is they're airy, they're light, they kind of blow in the wind if you've ever seen them growing, and they have very kind of thin stems. Some people will say kind of fern-like, but the leaves are very thin, not thick. But they come in all different colors. This one is especially beautiful. It's an apricot color, and it has kind of a pinkish purple center around the florets. So it's made up of these kind of lobed petals that are kind of together, grouped together. And then in the center are actually a lot of different florets or flowers. That's the flowers in the center. And it's just beautiful with the color. It actually has been kind of a difficult color to match up because they're almost fluorescent to a point. So when we think about this placement, um, what I did was eliminate a couple of the flowers, which is a choice. I felt like I really didn't need it. And I love the space that I can create on top. It allows me for, if I want a nature journal, I can add words, pictures, and even ask questions. It reminds me of, I'm noticing, whatever you like, you could write poetry. But often, what makes me so drawn to the Asian aesthetics, the Chinese and Japanese, is they always thought about mindfulness and the seasons. And when you think of their homes, at least traditional, there was always alcoves with space, not a lot of things. And I tend to think of Western culture as a house filled with things and no place for the mind to rest. So, have you ever walked into someone's home and you see all these beautiful things and you don't know what to look at? So, the Japanese aesthetic that I understand is that you have simple things or beautiful things, but there's more space. So I try and think about that in my own home and try to let things shine by themselves. And we can apply this to our artwork, which is wonderful. So when we look at this, we can choose where we want to draw the flowers, how we want to place it on the paper. I did a vertical placement. Maybe you want to turn your page to landscape. Maybe you want to center it different. This particular photographer placed this on kind of the right side corner bottom of the page, but maybe if you were adding something to it, you would change it. Uh, Also, you may want to add more of the flower heads. I chose to take away a few and leave a little bit more space. So we talk about that in painting terms as negative and positive space that is around the main subject. So each flower head may be the main subject. And if you look, you see the white of the paper popping through all of these individual flower heads. And as a composition, I like it because it's not overly crowded. There's space to look around. There's a couple other points I want to share. Think of it as also simplicity and prioritizing the subject matter. So often, what I've shared with you in classes is that we like to think of what is the focus, who's the main actor, and who are the supporting roles. So it depends what your focus is. So, where am I zooming in and what's important? So, I think these two flowers kind of bring you into it, but they kind of form a triangle here. And then these are kind of minor actors in the back. So, I didn't feel they were as important. It's also important, I've learned from botanical illustration, that we capture different views of the flower. So all of these pretty much are facing kind of on a three-quarter turn. This far right one is a little bit turned to the right, but it also can demonstrate flaws in the plant or seasonal changes in the plant, color changes. And I love to pick and choose some of those things. Have you ever been drawn to walking and spotting something that speaks to you and notice the beauty of it, even though it may be fading and possibly dying? So let's get started and kind of get started with our painting. So I'm going to keep the picture up here so you can follow along. So on this piece, I put in some base color and started accentuating the florets in the center. Let's move to this. So I have my paper towel out here, and hopefully you can kind of see. Let's see if we can scoot this over just a little bit. So I won't be finishing all the flowers, but we will get you started. So you will feel confident enough to get started. So to begin with, it's always nice, and this is the Stillman Burn. I believe it's the Epsilon. It's kind of like a mixed media. And we're going to use a yellow ochre because it's such a warm color base. And I always take the color from my palette and move it out and then make it more fluid. But it doesn't have to be too thin, actually. And I keep my paper towel here to kind of blot it. Now, using an opaque, one of my favorite products is the Dr. P.H. Martin Bleed Proof White. It's very opaque, great. For years, I would only let students use it very minimally to dot an I, to put in a stamen or highlight something, and you really can't become dependent on using whites to cover up things. So you'll learn this as you go, and you may already know this. Now, these are my gouache paints. These are actual opaque watercolors, and they're not acrylic. Acrylic dries much faster. These can be lifted and manipulated even when they're completely dry. So I'm just spraying them. I call that activating my paints. And there is a gouache in here. So sometimes I'll use that versus the Doc PH Martin. And I'm going to put some of that in there. And it looks a little creamy, so I don't want it to get too creamy. Let's see if we have something. Maybe out of it. So I like to keep scraps of white watercolor paper, and then that way I could kind of add the color to it. So that kind of gives you a nice creamy base for it. So I'm going to use I have a 6 velvet touch brush, not like rounds. And I just need to basically be able to start. So I'm going to start with this kind of petal. There are multiple petals kind of together. And by putting water base, that helps it become easier to lift later. So not too wet, so I can see sometimes the water is too wet. If your brush is really wet, go ahead and just blot it on your paper towel. Or if you prefer, get these socks. These are the top of the socks. Actually, they're my husband's. And you can blot that if you don't want to use paper towel, or you could have a paper towel roll, a toilet paper roll. There's lots of different things that we use. So let's go to the next. And this drawing was actually transferred. I just printed it out and then traced it, not traced, but transferred it with my Cero graphite paper. It comes in rolls or single sheets. It's one of the best ones. Some of them become permanently marked on the paper, so be careful because we want to be able to lift it if we don't like or if it's too dark. So hopefully if you transfer it, you put the Cero paper in between the copy of what you're transferring and tape it down at the top. And then look at how you're transferring. I like to use an embosser. And let's see, this is an embosser. It has two metal balls at the end. And instead of using a pencil or a pen, I press into that. Someone who was a draftsman or an engineer many years ago taking a class did that, and her pictures were so clean and nice that I started using that technique. So we let that dry, and in watercolors, we always start from light to dark, but sometimes I will put in some darks so that I can kind of start plotting out where the colors are coming, not quite as dark. So I'm looking at the center. It looks like it's kind of facing the right, but it seems like it's a warmer yellow. So I'm gonna just take a little bit of my warm yellow and let's just wet it a little bit. It's like to have some control, but I also like that it can move around. So I start more in the middle and let it kind of move out itself. And then maybe let that dry. Now there's little ins and out, little to indicate the different florets. And this is a much warmer, a little bit deeper. It's more golden yellow versus I will put in some lemon yellow. Or actually, I'm looking at the shadow and it looks like it's more of a pure yellow ochre. And if you're not sure on how to mix some of these colors, if you go to my website, I have my signature class called Watercolors with 6 tubes. It's really more 8 tubes now, but you can pretty much mix almost any color that you want. There's lots of techniques and projects in that. It's hours of instruction and it's wonderful. And I taught it for years, and often students would take the class over and over because of the information. So it will be available for purchase for you on ElaineMBergstrom.com. Okay, so sometimes instead of doing a wet on wet, I like it to be dry and go with a glaze. So once it's glazed, you let it dry and then reapply water, and then you see the colors kind of coming through. So this area around the florets was much pinker. When I look at this one from the photo, it has more purple. So you can also take your ultramarine, and I would use my cool red and make a purple. You can add a little bit of gouache to it to lighten it, but I have some beautiful pastel gouache. These are all Holbein colors. And let's put it on the tray so you can see that color. And it's pretty close to that center. It's almost like a perfect kind of color. I also still see some pinks coming through on it, some whites, and you pay attention to those. Now, in the petals, I see yellow and I see white as well. So maybe we can add. So I'm going to take I have a pretty fine pointed brush, and these are the Velvet Touch brushes, and I'm going to take my azo color, which is more lemon yellow, and I'm going to dilute it. And then following the lines of the petals, I'm going to very lightly sweep the yellow in the direction that I kind of see on each of these petals to give me some direction. So I put that in. I'm going to let that dry a little bit. Now, and we'll come back to it. So let's kind of do that center. But I also see some pink in there. And I'll probably go back and forth, but you want this kind of fluid. And if you can, get a nice thin brush. Sometimes riggers are good, but what I like about this is it has a really fine point. And I always tended to be more heavy-handed, make sure you're on the right pedal. And I'm just gonna kind of feather around this area. And if you see it kind of coming down, well, bring it down a little bit. So there's a little bit of petal here that's more pink. And then up in this area. So you don't have to go like overboard with it. A little more indication. And what's great about this type of painting, if you're painting looser and not botanical, which is exacting with a lot, you'll start paying attention, what I hope, is to the details. And maybe you don't get all the details right at the beginning. You'll become better and notice, and then you can pick and choose what you want. Now, with the pink against that yellow ochre, it becomes a little peachy too, which is okay. Okay. And what you can do is take a little bit bigger brush with just some water. Make sure your brush is clean. And then you can kind of really lightly soften some of those lines so that they're not super harsh or too strong. And I probably would have done it quicker, not wait till I paint it all. I would do each petal and then maybe soften it so you can see if they're not softening too well, they're getting kind of dry. And now I want to put in this plum. Remember, you can mix up purples. There's even deeper purples in here that I would take my ultramarine blue and my coal red with. And let's see. So think of the direction and make wispy lines, which help lead the line. Oh, I'm on the wrong one. That was, and that's common to sometimes put the wrong color. Sometimes I would uh, line up a thread to kind of follow. So I want that pink to kind of blend into, and it's somewhat wet, so maybe I rushed it a little bit too much. And notice I can see this is more of a red violet versus a blue violet. And if you can think of the contours, where are the shapes of the line going around? And we even have some of that pink and purple on the edges here, which can help define it. But you put in what you feel and what you want. And if you're new to painting, you can try this flower many times and you can try color changes. So remember, I'm going to maybe soften with water, just water, color. And notice how far out that purple goes. Like you don't want to necessarily bring it all the way across if it's not there. So I can see a lot more pink in there now. And those contour lines sometimes really help us see some more of the shape of it. We're going to add some yellow to really pop it. So the question I ask is, can I see that yellow ochre color underneath? So I can also go back over it, follow the contour, and pick it up a little bit. I don't know if these cosmos grow well in Florida. That's where I live now. Used to live up north for most of my life. And try not to be like I have to, you know, pattern it the same exact way. Each petal may look a little like enjoy the looking process. Not to do some botanical exacting, I could spend, really hours. The zucchini has a lot more details in it than some of the other pieces, but I don't want you to get too discouraged, but you can keep building up how you paint. So if you're interested in some of the tools on my website under, I think it's classes, there's like a list of supplies. Um, and it will only tell you where they might be found. I'm not connected yet to the stores. So we can see the colors kind of coming along. And then I look and I say, what do I see? So, I see some more cooler red in it. I also see more pink. So that's with the gouache. I am using that. I just felt it was harder. Some people in the class were using opera rose, which is beautiful. I'd suggest that or the Quinn rose to kind of pick that up. This piece on the edge. And don't forget, if it gets too dark, wipe off the color. Let's see, so this one kind of rolls a little bit. Let's see if we can get that to show a little bit there. And those are the subtleties sometimes that I look for. There seems to be more of this plum back here. And you don't have to go as dark as it if you're not certain. Test it out a little bit. Sometimes we get it too dark, and then we have to magically lift it up, which you can do. Done that many a times. Kind of vibrates a little bit. Okay, and there's a kind of a pink spot here. But have fun with the colors. They're unusual colors, I think, in flowers. Hopefully you're enjoying some flowers that are starting to perk up. Um, I had some landscaping done not too long ago, and there was a really pretty, it's called a walking violet, and it only lasts a day, which is disappointing because it's such a beautiful flower. But the inner petals, there's like three, look almost like like an animal print. It's really very pretty. I should post it on Instagram or something so you can see this. So I'm just using that cool red. Some many different paints, but I find it's very important to learn how to mix colors and use a limited palette. If sometimes like burnt sienna or Payne's gray I use a lot, then I say after I teach you how to mix those colors, because you need to know how. Um, it's fine if you use them a lot to keep them in your toolbox. Let's see. So it seems like kind of a blue. Let's see. This squash is a little more aqua, but I might just pick that up just a little bit too much. So with that, and sometimes it just a drop kind of pulls it together. Looks like a little more purple. So hopefully you're enjoying this. I'll probably add a couple things to it. I would love to finish it and post the video. Please let me know if you're enjoying and finding some of these videos valuable. Uh, and start putting out some different videos of things I've taught for different different ways that we get started in it. Okay, so let's go back to the floret. So I see there's kind of like a little bit of yellow ochre, and I'm just going to soften it down into that little space. And along the edges, it's much darker, but let's go ahead and add a little bit of that warm yellow, not thinned out too much, but fluid enough that you can dot it. And there's some wonderful pictures of these disc florets. So I'm just dotting and leaving some of maybe the underneath color come through. We can kind of let that dry. Now, what do you think is that color? So I think it might be some burnt sienna and maybe a little cooler red in it. So it's more a little burgundy-ish. Let's see. I kind of like that. And maybe a drop of Payne's gray. So Payne's gray is great because it's can go gray, it can go black. I never use blacks really, unless I'm painting sumi painting, because that's traditional. And that kind of gives it a little bit, maybe, oops, a, a little bit of a shadow too. Dot, dot, dot. That kind of pops it a little bit, but notice it's not all around there. Maybe what we could do is take some of our cool red and make a uh, blue purple, blue violet, and kind of tuck in, if you see, not too much though. And we'll need to soften it a little bit. Anybody can paint and draw. You just like anything else, you have to practice. Some of us, I think, we get images in our mind faster maybe than others when we're creating, but the techniques you still pretty much have to practice. Most of the people that I've seen study practice, and some practice more than others. Now here is kind of a white petal, and we'll keep this. Do you see it? So I'm going to go back over with a little bit of that more lemony yellow that I have, and very feather-like. That's gonna maybe pop up the color a little bit. If I was in the field, I'd probably take some pictures. If it was growing in my backyard, I have more of an opportunity to draw it. But if I was in the field, I might just draw lines and say this is yellow with this. Probably might not have the time to paint it quite like this. So maybe this flower would be more of a studio. But I'm still learning about it by painting it. And I could write up what I see, what it reminds me of if I wanted to do some nature journaling with that. So what's your favorite cosmos? Have you painted them? So it's big water spot here. So now I want to go back in and dab a few more golden um, and then drop in some thicker lemon yellows. Let's see. It's a little too wet, so sometimes you have to wait for it to dry. I got money. So if your brush isn't clean, make sure it's clean. Definitely need more pink. So if you've ever seen a tube of paint with these exact colors, let me know. I checked even my Japanese colors, my Chinese colors. So I'm just adding this gouache pink to it. Uh, Often in classes, I've recommended these colors. And that just pops it, doesn't it? And then I can let that dry and come back to it. So remember, if you're screenshotting and printing, um, you're going to get some different effects by the different printers and paints. So what I'm noticing is, some more plum in there. So you just, each time, maybe you tweak it a little bit, or maybe you stop and maybe you write, or maybe you're going to give some poetry. Let's see. So you have to look and see where is it darker, where is it lighter. Let's see. Careful not to make them, too long either. Okay. And really, besides adding, let's add some of this brighter yellow in here. I feel like it's dabbing in some more of that lemony yellow. And then when it's dry, I would just take either some of my dark blue and violet. Let's mix some really dark here, or I would do some Payne's gray and drop that in. So let's add right at the tip though. And if it's wet, like this is, maybe wait till it dries and then just dot a little bit. It's bleeding. And then you can tuck back in some more of that. So I hope you enjoyed this and we'll watch for more videos. And if you have the Zoom link, come join me. And if this has helped you, please like and subscribe. It's really appreciated. Till next time.